In this video, we're going to finish the rest of the head by drawing the mouth, eye, and hair. We're also going to introduce a new tool to use called the line width tool. So let's do the same thing for the mouth. Let's use the add points tool, A on the keyboard, and I'm going to create a point. Now again, these handles, they're starting to get in the way a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn that off for now. Now I want to create this part of his mouth. In here it gets a little bit more complex, so I need a few more points. Right now I just have 1 point, so if I use T on the keyboard, transform points, and I try to drag that over, you can see it's not giving me the result that I want. What I need to do is I need to create another point. So I'm going to select A on the keyboard for an add point tool, and I'm just going to click and I'm just going to drag that to the corner. And now we got this really weird curve going on. What I like to do whenever I'm drawing in Moho is I always like to use sharp corners. So I actually toggle this sharp corner on. So to fix this, I'm going to hit C on the keyboard and I'm just going to select this point and I'm just going to click and drag left. And I'm going to do the same thing, click and drag left. And there we go. We're back to using straight corners. Hit C on the keyboard, just fix that corner a little bit there. Okay, so now we got this part of the mouth right here. We know that now we need more points in order to get this shape to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit A on the keyboard and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag to that point. I'm going to create another point right about around here. It doesn't really matter where. I'm just going to hit A on the keyboard, click and drag, and then A on the keyboard, click and drag. So do you see what I'm doing? I'm just bringing those points to the different corners. So now we just basically have a point in every single corner. That's the drawing tools when you're using the vector tools in Moho. It takes a little bit to get used to, but I find these tools really cool and I've gotten used to them and I've been able to create a lot of cool stuff with these drawing tools. Okay, so now that we got our head and we got our mouth, let's go ahead and create the eye layer. So technically I could build this into the same layer, but I want to start introducing how to use different layers. So let's go to a new layer and let's create a vector layer called the eye layer. Now with layers, it's important that you stack them in the correct order. With this eye, if this eye layer was behind the head, I wouldn't be able to see the eye itself. So I'm going to keep the eye on top of the head. I'm going to come over here to the add point tool and I'm simply going to create 2 points. I'm going to create a point by clicking once, left clicking and dragging, and I'm going to drag over to this other corner there. Now you can see as I created this that there's not an autofill, an auto stroke, or anything. And that's because it's not a closed shape. If I go ahead and then I create a few more points and I close the shape, you can see that's automatically going to create those things. But that's okay. I just want to leave it just like that for now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select somewhere in the middle here of this eye and I'm going to create a point and I'm going to drag it down to right about there. So it's about halfway centered in this stroke. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hit C on the keyboard for my curvature tool. And I'm going to left click and drag to the right, and I'm going to create a curvature. Now right here, you can see that the curvature got tweaked a little bit. To fix that, just simply drag left or right with the curvature tool. And now we have a good U shape going on there. Now the next panel that we're going to look at is the fill panel. Right now, we just have a vector line. This has nothing to it. If I go ahead and I render this out, Control R, you can see that that line doesn't even show up. That's because there's nothing on there. There's no stroke, there's no fill. So what we want to do is we want to create this into a shape. Remember, like the rectangle, it was a shape, so everything was enclosed and it was able to create a fill and a stroke. For this vector line, it doesn't create anything. So we got to tell the software that we want this to be a shape. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the fill tool. I'm going to hit the create shape tool or U on the keyboard. And then I'm going to come and select this shape. Now, when I selected this tool, you can see it gives me some more options. I have the ability, when I create the shape, to add a fill, a stroke, or both. Right now, I'm just going to leave both selected, even though we're not creating a fill. We're just using a stroke because it's not a closed shape. And then I'm going to hit create shape or enter on the keyboard. And now we have our shape. So to make this shape look more closer to the shape that we have now, let's go ahead and just see what it looks like. What I want to do is I want to taper the ends and I want to add a thicker stroke to the center. I'm going to come over here to the line width tool, W on the keyboard, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. And as you can see, we got a little bit more of that eye shape that we have. I'm going to come over here to these corners and I'm just going to thin them out a little bit more. Using T on the keyboard, I'm just going to move them more into the corners so it's a little bit closer to the actual shape. And that looks pretty good. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the hair. So this layer is going to go below the head. I can either create a layer and then just click and drag it down wherever it is, Or if I create a layer below the head layer, it's also going to put that layer below it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new vector layer. And I'm going to call this hair. And before we forget, right click this tab or go to File and then hit Save. Always remember to save. Okay, so now we're going to do something similar that we did with this eye. I'm first going to show you the first strand, and then I want you to do the next 3 yourself. So on this hair layer, making sure that it's selected, I'm going to come over here, and with A on the keyboard, I'm going to create my add point. By now, you should be getting familiar with the keyboard shortcuts. I'm just going to create a point here. Really close to this point that I just created, I'm going to click again, and I'm going to create another point. And as you can see, what this is going to do, it's going to connect those points together. Again, this has no stroke or anything connected to it. So I need to create a shape. I'm going to come over here to create shape tool, U on the keyboard. I'm going to left click to select, hit enter on the keyboard, and there we go. We got another shape. Now this shape does have a little bit of curvature to it. So I'm going to hit C on the keyboard for my curvature tool, and I'm going to left click and drag to the right. I'm going to fix that right there. Again, it tweaks a little bit sometimes with the straight points and curvature tools. So you just have to fix that a little bit. Hit T on the keyboard, just bring in these corners to where they should go. And then I'm going to hit W for the line width tool. I'm going to go ahead and widen the strokes here on his hair. Just going to move that a little bit, curve it a little bit, and that should be good. Let's go ahead and let's give it a little bit more width to his hair. I think it needs to be a little bit more thicker. And I'm just going to click and drag that so it's not popping out. I just want to have that so it's just part of his head. It just kind of goes with the curve there, and that looks good. Now, like I said, for good practice, go ahead and create these next few hair strands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this whole layer with the T on the keyboard. I'm just going to select the line itself. It's going to select all the points. And then I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, and that's going to copy and paste that hair strand that we just created. And that's it. So we created the rest of the mouth layer. We created the eye layer, got familiar more with the add points tool, the line width tool, and now we're ready to start working on the body. I'll see you in the next video. Want to learn how to take your drawings and bring them to life? If you want to learn more about character design and the Moho drawing tools, be sure to check out my step-by-step online course that teaches you how to take your character designs from paper to animation. Want to take the course? Use promo code CHARACTER2019 and get the course 50% off. Link is in the description.